Welcome to the Early Morning Light podcast. I am your host, Tracy Early, and I'm so glad you joined us. On this podcast, we share life-changing tools, tips, information, motivation, inspiration to bring light to your life as you listen to episode after episode. We are so glad you joined this podcast today. And today the focus is going to be on the concept or the idea of taking 100% responsibility for your life. We all know it. And at some level, we've thought about it. We've considered the fact that our life would be so much different if we took 100% responsibility for what happens, for the results we achieve, for the achievements we have, for the experiences that we experience in life. It is so important that we take 100% responsibility and watch what that does to your life. So we could think of any area. In the area of health, we can take 100% responsibility of how we take care of ourselves, how we take care of our bodies, how we take care of our mental health. If we take 100% responsibility for that area, life would be so much different. Our relationships, if we took 100% responsibility and didn't blame others for what's happening in our relationships, if we didn't focus on excuses or negativity or any of those things, we could take 100% responsibility and have better relationships. If we took 100% responsibility of our finances, we would probably be in a better place. If we didn't waste money versus save and invest, we would be in such a better place in our lives. We all know this, but on this podcast, this episode, I want to remind you that you're always in a position to take 100% responsibility of your own life. And that is so exciting when I think about that. When I think about the power of taking 100% responsibility, the fact that we can always make that choice. It could be even in our personal careers. If we take 100% responsibility, where would we go? Where would we go in our business if we took 100% responsibility for the results that we are achieving? I am here to talk about that today and to encourage you that you have an opportunity to do that. You can start today. If you're thinking, maybe you're not, or you haven't taken 100% responsibility and you're not getting the results that you want, you have an opportunity. I had a mentor that used to say to me, he would say, Tracy, you can go 100% in the wrong direction for miles and miles. He said, but as soon as you turn around, you're headed back in the right direction. That is what we're talking about here today, taking 100% responsibility from this point forward. But before we get into how to do that, I'd like to talk to you about a formula that has been so meaningful to my life. And you may have seen this somewhere. I can't tell you exactly who was the first person to create this formula and to share it, but it is the formula that if you're writing it out, it says E plus R equals O. And yes, some of you are thinking, I've seen that formula before. I know exactly what that means. I'm going to tell you what my version that I learned, what it means. And this is what the E stands for. The E stands for events. Events are going to happen in our lives. When events happen, the R, the response, is going to happen. We're going to respond in one way or the other. That's the E plus the O. The E plus the R. And then on the other side of the equal sign is the O, which is the outcome. So E plus R equals O. Events are going to happen. We are going to respond in some way. And based on how we respond, we're going to get an outcome. So let's think about what that might mean. We're always going to have things happening in our lives. Some of those things are negative. Let's just say, for example, we are driving to work. And this happens to me way too frequently. So we're driving to work. We get to a common stoplight. And we have 10 minutes to get to work, right? You get to a common stoplight and there is a train rolling across the track. The lights are up and blinking. That rail is down. The cars are all stopped at the stop sign or stoplight. And we know immediately that we are not going to get to where we're going in the time that we wanted to get there. So here's the opportunity. We get to choose how we respond to that situation. Just that example. We can get really frustrated. We can start yelling bad words, whatever that means to you. We can get really tensed and anxious or allow ourselves to be. We can start yelling and screaming and blaming the railroad people or the train, whoever's riding or driving the train. We can blame them. And I've done this before. Why is it that you have to come across the track at this time of day? There's all these other hours in the day, but you choose to come across the track at 6:55 a.m. and stop me or prevent me from getting to work on time. How many of you out there know that guy driving the train has no idea that you exist? He has no idea, or she has no idea that you have to be at work at 7:15 or 7:30. That person is just doing his or her job. And I know some people are going to hear that and maybe disagree with that. But the reality is that we have another way that we can respond. And let's think about what that might be. We can say, well, okay, well, that person has a job to do. That person has this particular time frame to get from where they're going to deliver whatever they're delivering. We can think, okay, well, I have this time in the car. I have an audio book that I can turn on and listen to and maybe get some inspiration, some tips. I can turn on the Early Morning Light podcast and listen to that right now that I have time. Or I can reframe the way that I'm thinking about this in a lot of different ways. I can say, okay, maybe this is my higher power or my God giving me an opportunity to slow down and spend some time with him. There's multiple ways that we can respond in every situation. And based on how we respond, now, if we respond in that more negative way, the tension, the frustration, the cursing, the yelling, the outcome is that we're going to be what? Really frustrated, really angry, really tense. And we're going to show up to wherever we're headed once that train goes by in that state of mind. We can always control the response to the events. Events are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen. Negative things are going to happen. Positive things are going to happen. But we always have an opportunity to decide how we're going to respond and respond in a way that is effective for us in that moment. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about not just controlling the way we respond, but finding a way to respond in a way that is effective. Because the reality is that no matter how we respond in any situation, our response is always going to be either effective or ineffective. And we can all think of ways as we go throughout our days. And sometimes it's good to take an accurate account or to spend some time reflecting on, and especially in times of stress, how am I responding to the events that are happening in my life throughout the day? Am I responding more positively? And is that giving me the outcome of feeling energized and positive and feeling productive, feeling less stress and tension so I can be more creative, so I can get more done because I'm responding in a way that is not creating this negative interference of tension and stress and all those things that are more negative. We always have that opportunity. So I'm encouraging you as you listen to this episode to start thinking about what are some ways that I can begin to respond to the events in my life so that I can get better outcomes, so that I can feel better about what's happening on my day. No matter what happens, no matter what the event is, I can respond. So E plus R equals O. Events are going to happen. We're always going to respond one way or the other. And based on how we respond, we're going to get an outcome. Let's start controlling our outcome. So let's talk about what that looks like. There are really three key areas that we want to focus on when it comes to controlling the outcome in that formula E plus R equals O. And those things are, we always have control over our thoughts. So that's the first area. We can control how we think about whatever happens. And based on how we think about what happened, i.e. the train, if I'm thinking more positive thoughts, like that person has a job to do, has to get to where they need to go, or maybe this is an opportunity for me to just slow down and reflect and maybe breathe more deeply or do something that's going to relax myself while I'm sitting at this light. Or maybe it's an opportunity to plan out my day in my head or plan out what I'm going to do next once the train is gone or once I get to work. There's always an opportunity to control the thoughts. And if we control our thoughts, we control the outcome. The other thing that we need to control is what we visualize, which is what we see, the mental pictures that we see in our mind when things happen. If we're starting to visualize things that are more distressing or more negative, then our outcomes are going to be more negative, right? If we start to visualize, I'm going to get to work and I'm going to be super late and everything is going to be chaotic and I'm going to get yelled at and I'm going to not be productive, whatever, then we're visualizing things that are not helpful. The last area that we can focus on in terms of gaining control of the outcome or our response, is our actions. We get to control, as I've said already, what can I do in this situation to get through this situation more effectively, to respond in a way that's going to be more effective for me. Do I reach over and turn on the Early Morning Light podcast so I can feed my mind with something more positive and more helpful? Do I pull out a book and start reading the book if that's in your car? Do I turn on the radio and listen to some inspirational music? Do I start planning my day in my head? All of the things that I've mentioned, those are the actions that are going to lead to a more positive outcome in those situations. So there you have it. If we're going to be more successful in life, if we're going to get the outcomes we want, we have to take 100% responsibility for our lives. We all have that opportunity. And it is my hope, it is my belief that as you listen to this and as you think about your life, that you are going to begin to think on a daily basis, how can I take 100% responsibility of what happens for me today? That's it for the second episode of the Early Morning Light podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like this podcast on all of the platforms. Invite your friends to tune in to the Early Morning Light podcast on a weekly basis so you can receive this life-changing information that will add light to your life. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon.